These scientists solved problems that stumped the entire world. They built systems still running today, saved lives that medicine had given up on, and most people have never heard a single one of their names. 1. Lewis Howard Latimer. Most people know Thomas Edison. Almost nobody knows Lewis Howard Latimer. Lewis was born in Chelsea, Massachusetts in 1848. His parents had escaped slavery in Virginia years before his birth. He left school young, joined the U.S. Navy at 15 by lying about his age, and after the war ended walked into a patent law office in Boston and asked for a job. They gave him the lowest position possible, office errand boy. He watched the draftsmen work every single day. He bought his own tools with his small wages. He practiced technical drawing at night, alone. Within a few years, he became the best draftsman in that office. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell walked in needing technical drawings done fast to patent the telephone. Lewis drew those diagrams. That patent happened partly because of Lewis Latimer. Then he moved to Connecticut and worked with Hiram Maxim, Edison's direct competitor. Edison's light bulbs had one serious problem. The carbon filament burned out within days. Latimer solved this in 1881. He patented a method of enclosing the carbon filament inside a protective cardboard envelope, which made the filament last dramatically longer. Electric light bulbs became reliable because of what he figured out. He then personally supervised electric lighting installation across New York City, Philadelphia, Montreal, and London. He wrote the first book explaining electric lighting systems, published in 1890. Edison hired him directly in 1884, and Latimer became the only black member of the Edison Pioneers, the top engineering group working alongside Edison himself. 2. Daniel Hale Williams. In 1893, a man named James Cornish was stabbed near his heart in a Chicago street fight. Every medical textbook at that time said one clear thing: the heart is untouchable. Operating on it meant death. No surgeon had ever successfully opened a human chest and worked near a beating heart. Daniel Hale Williams opened that chest anyway. Daniel was born in Pennsylvania in 1856. His father died when he was 11. He bounced between cities and relatives before landing in Wisconsin, where a local doctor named Henry Palmer recognized his intelligence and took him as an apprentice. Daniel enrolled at Chicago Medical College and graduated in 1883. He founded Provident Hospital in Chicago in 1891, the first hospital in America with an interracial medical staff, because black doctors had almost zero access to hospital training anywhere in the country. When James Cornish arrived bleeding and unconscious, Daniel cut through the chest, found a 1¼ inch wound in the pericardium, the sac around the heart, sutured it precisely, and closed everything. James Cornish walked out of that hospital 51 days later. He lived another 50 years after that surgery. Daniel became Surgeon-in-Chief of Freedman's Hospital in Washington, D.C. the following year, cut the death rate significantly, and became a founding member of the American College of Surgeons in 1913. He trained hundreds of black surgeons throughout his career. If you like the video so far, how about take a moment to give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. We're The Missing Clue. Every week we post videos about remarkable and mysterious discoveries throughout human history. So don't forget to miss out on the next one. Subscribe. 3. Alice Ball. Alice Ball was 23 years old when she solved a medical problem that had stumped doctors for decades. Born in Seattle in 1892, Alice studied pharmaceutical chemistry and became the first woman and first black person to earn a master's degree from the University of Hawaii in 1915. Her thesis on kava plant chemistry was so advanced that the faculty immediately hired her as an instructor. Leprosy was destroying communities across Hawaii at that time. The only known treatment was chalmugra oil. but it could not be injected without forming painful lumps under the skin, and patients refused to swallow it because of the unbearable smell and taste. The oil simply could not be absorbed by the human body in any existing form. Alice went into the laboratory and developed a water-soluble injectable version of the active compounds in chalmugra oil. She isolated the fatty acid ethyl esters, made them injectable, and the treatment worked. Patients actually improved. Then she died in December 1915 at 24 years old, likely from chemical exposure in the lab before she could publish anything. The College of Hawaii's president, Arthur Dean, took her research, continued using her method, published papers about it, and named it the Dean method. Alice Ball appeared nowhere in his writing. One doctor, Harry Hallman, who had worked directly with Alice, pushed back publicly and called it the Ball method in his own papers. The University of Hawaii formally honored Alice in 2000, placing a plaque on a chalmugra tree on campus. Hawaii declared February 29th as Alice Ball Day. Her method treated thousands of leprosy patients across the world before modern antibiotics arrived in the 1940s. 4. Ernest Everett. Ernest was born in Charleston, South Carolina in 1883. His father died when he was 4. He made it to Dartmouth College, graduated magna cum laude in 1907, and joined Howard University as a biology professor. Every summer he worked at the Marine Biological Laboratory in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, one of the most important research facilities in the world. The scientists there said Ernest had abilities with marine egg cells that nobody else could match. His experimental precision was extraordinary. His core discovery challenged the dominant scientific belief of his era. Scientists believed the cell nucleus controlled everything in a living cell. Ernest proved through careful, repeated experiments that the outer cell surface, the membrane, actively participates in the fertilization process. The surface is not passive. It plays a direct role in how life begins. He published over 60 scientific papers and wrote a landmark book, The Biology of the Cell Surface, in 1939. American institutions with real funding refused to give him proper research positions because of his race. So he went to Europe, Germany, France, Italy, where scientists welcomed him fully and gave him access to proper laboratories. World War II caught him in France. He was briefly held in a German prisoner camp before release. He returned to America sick and exhausted and died of pancreatic cancer in 1941 at 58. His understanding of the cell surface continues to shape developmental biology research today. Before we move on to the next, like this video and drop a comment. Which scientist on this list do you believe the world owes the most to? 5. Charles Richard Drew. Every time an ambulance rushes someone to a hospital and blood is ready and waiting, that system exists because of Charles Richard Drew. Charles was born in Washington, D.C. in 1904. He excelled athletically and academically, studied medicine at McGill University in Montreal, and then completed advanced training at Columbia University in New York. His research in the late 1930s focused entirely on blood preservation and storage. The central problem at that time was that whole blood could only survive for about a week after collection, which made large-scale blood storage nearly impossible. Charles discovered that separating blood plasma from red blood cells allowed plasma to be stored far longer, and that plasma alone could save lives in emergency situations where full blood typing was not possible. In 1940, with World War II expanding across Europe, the British government approached Columbia University for help setting up an emergency blood collection program. Charles directed the entire operation. He organized the collection of plasma from thousands of American donors, processed it, and shipped it to Britain. The program saved enormous numbers of lives. He then directed the American Red Cross Blood Bank program and developed the standardized methods for large-scale blood collection, processing, storage, and distribution that hospitals across America adopted. His systems became the foundation of modern blood banking worldwide. Then the American Red Cross, under U.S. military pressure, began segregating blood donations by race, separating black donor blood from white donor blood. Charles Drew, the man who built the entire blood banking system, spoke publicly against this policy, calling it scientifically meaningless. Because blood has no racial characteristics whatsoever, he resigned from the Red Cross program in protest. He died in 1950 at 45 years old after a car accident in North Carolina. The blood bank systems he designed are still operating in updated forms in hospitals across the world right now. 6. Mae C. Jemison. NASA receives thousands of applications every year. In 1987, they opened their doors, reviewed over 2,000 candidates, and picked 15 people. Mae Jemison was one of them. What made her different from every other applicant was the sheer range of what she had already done before that selection. Chemical engineering degree from Stanford, which she entered at 16 years old. Medical degree from Cornell in 1981. 2 years on the ground in Sierra Leone and Liberia as a Peace Corps medical officer, treating patients and running research in some of the most resource-limited conditions possible. She had applied to NASA once before in 1985. The Challenger disaster froze all selections that year. She came back in 1987, applied again, and got in. On September 12, 1992, the Space Shuttle Endeavour lifted off with Mae Jemison aboard as mission specialist on STS-47. For nearly 8 days in orbit, she ran experiments inside the Space Lab Japan module, bone cell research, motion sickness studies in zero gravity, materials science testing. She was the first black woman to reach space. After leaving NASA in 1993, she built the Jemison Group, focused on bringing technology access to developing countries. Then she took on something even larger, leading the 100-Year Starship Project, a DARPA-funded initiative with one specific goal: make human travel to another star system physically possible within 100 years. She went from a girl entering Stanford at 16 to the person planning humanity's exit from this solar system. 7. Garrett Morgan, 6th grade. That is where Garrett Morgan's formal education ended. He left school in Claysville, Kentucky at around 14 years old, one of 11 children born to parents who had been enslaved, and moved to Cincinnati with nearly nothing in his pockets looking for any work available. He landed in Cleveland, got a job fixing sewing machines, studied the mechanics so thoroughly that he opened his own repair shop, then built a successful tailoring business on top of that. Everything he learned, he taught himself through direct observation and relentless practice. In 1912, he built a smoke hood, a breathing device that drew air from floor level where smoke concentration stays lowest. He put on the device, walked into a tent pumped full of thick smoke, and stayed inside for 20 minutes in front of a crowd to demonstrate it worked. Fire departments across the country bought it. 4 years later, in 1916, a tunnel exploded 250 feet below Lake Erie in Cleveland. Workers were trapped underground with toxic gas filling every passage. Garrett showed up personally with his smoke hoods, went down into that tunnel with a small team, and pulled trapped workers out alive. The U.S. Army saw the device and adapted it directly into the gas masks that soldiers wore throughout World War I. Then in 1923, he looked at intersections where cars and pedestrians were colliding at dangerous rates and invented the 3-position traffic signal, adding a caution phase between stop and go so drivers had time to actually clear the intersection safely. He sold that patent to General Electric for $40,000. Every traffic light operating anywhere in the world today traces its design back to what Garrett Morgan built with a 6th grade education and zero outside funding. 8. Patricia Bath. Patricia Bath finished high school in 2 years. 2 years, not 4. That pace tells you everything about how her mind worked. She grew up in Harlem, New York in 1942. Her father was the first black motorman on the New York City subway. Her mother took her own savings and spent them specifically on books and a chemistry set for Patricia, because she could see exactly what kind of child she was raising. Patricia moved through Hunter College, then Howard University College of Medicine, where she earned her medical degree in 1968, then a residency in ophthalmology at New York University. In 1976, she co-founded the American Institute for the Prevention of Blindness, operating on the conviction that eyesight is a fundamental human right. She became the first black female faculty member at UCLA's Jules Stein Eye Institute. Her invention came from a problem she refused to accept: cataracts, the clouding of the eye's lens, cause more blindness worldwide than any other condition. The surgical tools available at the time were mechanical, imprecise, and caused significant damage to surrounding tissue in the process of removing the cataract. Patricia spent 5 years, from 1981 to 1986, working across laboratories in the United States, England, and Germany, developing a device that used laser energy instead of mechanical cutting to dissolve cataracts with far greater precision and far less trauma to the eye. She called it the laser phaco probe. She patented it in 1988, becoming the first black female doctor in American history to receive a medical patent. During clinical trials, her probe restored functional vision to patients who had lived in complete blindness for over 30 years. She held 5 patents total before her death in 2019. Her research papers now sit in the Smithsonian Institution. The number of people worldwide who can see today because of what she built in those laboratories across 3 countries runs into the millions. The world you live in today was built on discoveries made by people history chose to ignore. Subscribe, because there are names just like these that still need to be told. 9. George Washington. Carver. The story of the plant doctor has miserable beginnings. You see, he wasn't born into opportunity. George Washington Carver was born in 1864 into slavery. By the time he reached the fields of the American South, one crop ruled everything: cotton. And it was killing the soil. Carver saw what others ignored: fields turning to dust, farmers trapped in a cycle they couldn't escape. So he pushed a radical idea: stop planting cotton every year. Instead, rotate crops: peanuts, soybeans, sweet potatoes. These weren't just alternatives. They were soil healers, restoring nitrogen naturally back into the soil. Within a few seasons, dead land started producing again. Entire regions in the South shifted. Cotton yields stabilized. New crops created new income streams. And Carver didn't stop there. He developed 325-plus uses for peanuts, 108-plus for sweet potatoes, oils, dyes, plastics, food, industry. He wasn't just saving farms, he was rebuilding an economy. But here's the part people miss. He didn't patent most of it, didn't chase money, didn't fight for credit. So others scaled it, others profited. And Carver? He became a footnote, when in reality he quietly laid the foundation for what we now call sustainable agriculture. Millions of acres recovered, and America today is the second largest producer of soybeans, and a top 5 producer of peanuts. Who would have thought that a black scientist who grew up with no privilege for education pioneered a technique so remarkable for agriculture that it would change the fate of the great American nation? And most people still don't know his name. 10. Elijah McCoy. Trains used to stop constantly. Not for passengers, not for fuel, for oil. Every few miles, entire locomotives had to shut down just to lubricate their engines. It was slow, expensive, and completely normal, until Elijah McCoy changed it. This man gave the world the concept of automation that would certainly transform how machines and engines operated. And it certainly won't be an overstatement if you say that Elijah McCoy's concept for steam engines laid the groundwork for industrial automation. Born in 1844, trained as an engineer in Scotland, he came back qualified and got rejected. No one would hire a black engineer, so he took a job as a railroad fireman working inside the very machines everyone else ignored. And he saw the flaw. In 1872, he built the automatic steam engine lubricator, a device that used steam pressure to continuously oil moving parts while the engine was running. No more stopping, no more wasted time. Suddenly, trains ran longer, faster, smarter. It didn't just improve railroads, it boosted steamships and factory machinery too. But copies came fast, cheap imitations that failed under pressure. So engineers started demanding one thing: the real McCoy. Not hype, survival. He went on to earn 50-plus patents, including a graphite lubricator, 1915 for extreme heat engines. And yet, he's still overlooked. But the moment the machines didn't need to be lubricated manually, that was him. So if you look back in history, it was one black scientist who had every odd working against his career, outclassing the racist recruitment systems of his time. He went on to discover a solution so remarkable that revolutionized rail transport not just for his country, but for the entire world. The world you live in today was built on discoveries made by people history chose to ignore. Subscribe, because there are names just like these that still need to be told.